we are giving our flowers to women of Westchester. My mother has always told me, my mother passed in 2014, y'all know, but while she was alive, she always told me, give me my flowers while I am alive to smell them. You know what I'm saying? Women's history, traditionally, we celebrate women from the past who have done great things, and we need to always continue to keep their name alive. But starting last year, I thought it was as important to celebrate the women now doing things. We don't have to wait for them to be history to celebrate them. So I'm giving, this is my giving women their flowers. And our next guest is Tajian Nelson. Did I say your first name right? Did I say your first?
Perfect.
There you go. There you go. You know, I was sitting there like, boy, I'm gonna mess up her name. She's gonna look at me like, AJ, you done messed up my name.
You definitely get a clap because a lot of people, boy, you don't know how that's been pronounced.
Well, when I had it written out, people were like, how do you pronounce it? And then I was trying to do, you know how they do in the dictionary when they show you the diction, and I couldn't think of the phonetic for it to explain it to somebody. So.
Well, my mother, she found that name years ago, and it's actually Tajian Monet. She was in love with French names, so she found that years ago in a book. We never quite found the book, but that's a story, so that's why I don't hear it a lot.
Is there a story with the meaning of the name? Is there a story with the meaning of, or do you know?
Just that she loved the name. She loved names, and she didn't like any normal kind of names for her kids. She kind of throw a little bit of different, like she didn't want it to sound like every other name that you heard around the block at the time. Right. So yeah, I definitely never heard it growing up, but I know there are a couple of different Tajians around now. I've never met one though, but in the voter rolls and around Mount Vernon, I've heard there are some others, girls and guys between Mount Vernon and Rochelle. So maybe one day I'll meet them.
Well, let me just say this. So, you know, we started Black Westchester in 2014. Most people know this story. Actually, I have a book in June coming out talking about the whole story. So that people always ask me the story is Black Westchester, the origin story. So it's coming out in June. But I was in Atlanta for 10 to 12 years before I came back home, take care of my mom. She had stage 4 cancer, you know, and then Damon brought the idea to me. So as needless to say, you know, before that I was in the music business. So I wasn't really big in politics. I wasn't really involved in politics. I tell people and they laugh because they don't believe me. You know, my only involvement in politics, I voted for Bill Clinton twice and I voted for Obama twice. Like that was my entire as far as politics. I can't even tell you I voted in every presidential election. Those 4 times is the only time I ever voted. I didn't know what a councilman was, an assembly. I didn't even care. I was just about trying to get my paper like a lot of people. So I understand that mentality and I try to educate them now. But as I was going through, you know, you start meeting certain people and you start hearing of certain people and your name, even though I hadn't met you for years, the first time I heard your name, it stuck out. Like I always remembered your name. I didn't know you. I felt like I know you because, you know, you've been putting in work for so long that a lot of people big you up. So I've always heard your name. But it was just like, once I heard it, I knew it. You know, I hadn't seen you. I didn't know what you looked like, but I knew your name, though. Your name, it stayed with me from day one.
Got it. Thank you. Well, just similar to you, before I started, I wasn't really involved in politics. I mean, my family voted, but they weren't, you know, they weren't activists. They weren't like overly involved, you know, stuff like that. So coming into it, it's been 18 years now. I started in 2004. With Commissioner Lafayette, as you know, Reggie, and at the Board of Elections. And I came actually from being a management assistant at the Galleria Mall. Time. And then I came to the Board of Elections and his assistant was retiring. And he decided he would give me kind of like a chance, like a test. And I started in March 15th. So actually the other day I made 18 years there at the Board of Elections.
Wow.
And at the time he was commissioner and he was still chairman of the Mount Vernon Democratic City Committee at the time. Because some of you may not know, he was, then he wasn't, then he was again. So it was kind of like he got drafted back into it. And then slowly but surely, he drafted me into every other part of his life. And that's how I became the county Democratic secretary, and just becoming involved in the Westchester Young Democrats. I was a former president of that too. Like you said, you heard my name a lot around the place. And then I became the corresponding secretary to Mount Vernon Dems. And then now I am the executive board as financial secretary of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. So I get to have a lot of fun. And I'm co-vice president of my parent-teacher committee, my son's school. So I wear a lot of hats. And then I was his executive assistant for, like I said, pretty much this would have been 18 years. And I served in different roles at the Board of Elections, starting, like I said, from like a clerk to then becoming his executive assistant. And then I gained various promotions and upgrades throughout the years, eventually becoming the acting deputy, and then the deputy commissioner. And then now I'm commissioner. I'm the first Black female election commissioner of the Westchester County Board of Elections. So it's been quite a journey. And literally that's been now 12 days and counting. So,
and I don't know if you saw last week's show.
I did watch it.
So Bombi had several members of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus on, and we were highlighting some of them. And then, we had everybody basically, saying who we wanted to give flowers to. And I was highlighting you, and I don't know what I said last week was, I'm very big on not voting for, and I think our people have to be, their due diligence. We shouldn't vote for somebody just because they're Black. We shouldn't vote for somebody just because they're a woman or whatever, And with that saying, you becoming the next commissioner, you are more than qualified. And I wanted that to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to make that distinction. Some people just, they get it because they know somebody. Like, you just, and it's funny because while I planned on saying this, in your last, you just spelled out why you're qualified. Like, you just, before I can even bring it up, you didn't just spelled it all out. You did the work. Like, I mean, and that's very important. I mean, for people to know that, because we don't have, sometimes in our voting and our selecting of people, we think with our heart and with emotions, but we don't always think of the best qualified person. And I'm really proud to see you in that position. From the things that I know about you, again, I don't know you personally. We've only met once or twice, maybe, but I've always known your name, and you've come up the rank, and I think that's very important. And I hope you go on, to have that position for a while. And I look forward to see, how things change in the work that you do under your leadership.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I appreciate that. And like I've said, like I told people, I didn't start, a lot of people, because the Board of Elections is a partisan position, and one half is Democrat and one half is Republican. They just see a lot of us just as like politicians and where you come from and who you know, and people don't really get that a lot of us work really hard. As they say, started from the bottom and now I'm here. Right. So I've worked really hard, whether it's at the Board of Elections and whether I've been at 25 Grover Street in White Plains or at the Ardsley Warehouse packing the bags or helping to put the books together that go in the voting bags on election day, and just assisting and being like just a liaison, and just kind of like that that kind of link to the Board of Elections through Reggie, and just voting and now politics and things like that. So it truly is a blessing. And I thank God every day, as well as I appreciate the fact that, a man who didn't have to take a chance on me 18 years ago, he did. And I more than worked hard and proved that I was deserving of that faith that he put in me. And he made sure to teach me all about, politics and ethics and conviction and staying true to yourself and just remembering who you are, and my family also instilled that strong strength in me just to always, like I said, hold true to your values. And if you work hard, that work hard should be rewarded. And I feel like I'm a really true example that working hard, eventually you'll get your due. And I've honestly just been beyond humbled and honored these last few weeks and just throughout the years for the love and support that I've received throughout the county, the state, the city of Mount Vernon, before now, and particularly in the sudden untimely passing of Reggie. Obviously, he was many may not know he was going to retire at the end of this year finally, which didn't even seem possible. And I was planning to go for the position at that time. And you know what they say, right? We make plans and God laughs, and some things happen. And sometimes you just things happen and you just step right in and you do what you have to do. And that's what I'm continue to do. And I hope that people will continue to support me and continue to see who Tajian Nelson is, not just Reggie Lafayette's executive assistant or the acting deputy, but just who I'm going to be as a leader and a strong force going forward in the Board of Elections and in politics. So I look forward to showing everyone that.
A couple of things real quick. So I saw Reggie at the Maggie's. I think it was the Democratic. It was the launch for the Democratic ticket going into the general election.
Right.
And as I'm going to get me some salad or whatever, Reggie walks up to me and say, "You're going to get your wish." And I'm like, "What's my wish?" "You're going to get your wish. I'm retiring." I said, "Reggie, you've been retiring for the 8 years we've been doing Black Westchester." Like we laugh, But I want to say, I what we did. So I did the issue when I heard about his passing. I was done with the issue. Was going to the printer the next day. And then we got the message that he had died.
Wow.
And I basically redid the whole structure to cover the issue and everything. And, again, with that whole giving people their flowers while they're alive, I had quotes from a lot of big people and all that stuff. I would love to have been able to do that at his retirement. Absolutely. So that he could hear all these things and see what you know what I'm saying? That Like that would have been, because a lot of people thought we were enemies and we hated each other. I want to say, even when I was adversarial, and I say I was adversarial, in court cases, he'd be like, "This is your first time covering a court case like this year." He said, "Listen for this. You're going to hear this, this, and this." And he would break it down. And he was like, and he was a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I would always pick his brain.
Right.
And he would always talk to me. Now, he didn't come on the show a lot. He didn't talk to me on the record a lot, but we talked a lot, like when we saw each other. And I always said, he verbally sparred with the best of them. Like, he verbally sparred with the best of them. But what I wanted to say, as far as where you're concerned, one of my biggest complaints, again, and I'm using an example, not calling the individual out. So in 2015, I had a problem when Ernie Davis said the reason he was running is because there was no one qualified to take his place. And I felt immediately, if you've been the mayor for 16, now me and Ernie are cool. I'm not picking on Ernie. I'm just using him as an example. I've had this conversation with Ernie, so he knows. So I'm not talking about it behind his back. So,
don't worry, I'm run tell that, but this is live.
Everyone's going. Every time I mention, he'll hear about it, and then when I see him at WVOX, our show is after him. He'll talk. But what I felt at that time was, if you had been a mayor over 16 years, over a 20-year period, and you felt nobody was qualified to take your place, that it might be. What I challenged him, it might be an indictment on your leadership and not the people. Right. And what I say, I use that as an example to say, one of my biggest gripes, I felt Maureen ran one time too many instead of putting her support behind her deputy. And that might have saved us some of the problems with the whole Deborah Reynolds thing. But anyway, that's but she ran one time.
That's a whole nother radio show.
Right. But a lot of times our leaders, when they have been there so long, they don't always like leaders create other leaders.
Right.
And that's the difference between a leader and a boss. You know what I'm saying? But leaders create leaders
for the next generation.
Right. And I've been critical of some of our elders who did not groom and who did not mentor other people. And I say that to say, like Denzel said in the interview, to make a long story longer, it's easy to see how Reggie poured into you. Like, he didn't expect to die. He expected to retire at a certain point or whatever, but it didn't happen that way. But because he had poured into you over those years, you were ready to step up into the position. I think that's very important. And I think we all need to pay that forward. Like I try to, anybody who wants to get into writing, I try to bring them in because they're going to be the future of whatever this is. You know what I'm
Understood.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, I'm 56. I'm not going to be doing this for, the rest of my,
Right. Yeah,
forever and ever.
he absolutely did that. So despite what a lot of people believe that he wasn't, grooming or trying to get people, to take over, he definitely did that with me. And he definitely shared his knowledge and tried to groom and basically challenge us to step up, whether it be for me at the Board of Elections or chairwoman, the current chairwoman of the Mount Vernon City Democratic Committee, Mary Graves, who I know you may know as well, who was the
Yes.
first vice chair. And they'd worked together for years too. So he was definitely, like I said, getting ready, and he wanted us to step up and, just show everything that we learned from him, but also just to lead in our own right, as we, definitely didn't always see the vision the same, but always
Right.
the ultimate goal. So.
Right. And I just think that, and I wanted to uplift that because, again, like I said, I've been very critical of our leaders who have not passed that torch, who have not mentored. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes we reach out to the youth because it happens with me, and they just don't want to be mentored. Like, they just don't want to listen. And they, I had a few people that came up. They wanted to do what we do. I poured a lot into them. They wanted to go do something else, like, their way, not so.
Well, they want, I say it now, I often say sometimes some of the youth, not all, because I'm not going to put them
Right,
all in the same category. They
right,
want gratification, and they don't
right,
think that they don't want to they don't want to build. They just want to
right,
be at the top, and
right,
they don't want to learn anything. And sometimes they don't give credit where credit is due to our elders, because I
right,
always was raised to respect and just basically appreciate the knowledge of your elders. Not always that you would agree or see it that way. You definitely want to change, but there's a lot to be learned and a lot to teach and just a lot to go on and just share and expand on what they started and where we're eventually going. And there's always expansion to be done, and we all need to learn every day. We're all learning about each other and about whether it's elections or politics or life. And I mean, just, look at the world today, you know what I'm saying? And if we can't help teach each other, share our knowledge, and just be more embracing of each other and our differences, knowing that we don't always have to see eye to eye, but just being able to listen and then expound and then hopefully meet somewhere in the middle to coordinate, to build to the future, then we're just going to stay stuck. And, I hope that doesn't happen. And I do my best to ensure that that doesn't happen, whether it's with my sons or my nieces and my nephews and just other people who I work with in politics and things like that. And I always just tell them, like, don't take anything for granted, and definitely remember, you got to start somewhere. So,
you're saying, remind me, the first thing Reggie ever taught me, and he told me to remember this. I don't remember anything else. There are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies in politics, only permanent interests. Right. So, like, he actually told me that, and that's when I was being very critical of Ernie at the time. Me and Ernie have been cool since then. And the party basically wasn't really feeling me because we were holding people to the fire.
Sometimes there's rocky beginnings. We all have
yes.
And sometimes everyone's perspective, like, I think sometimes the problem that we experience, whether it's in politics or, even relative to anything, is just that sometimes people take word of mouth without really introducing themselves and really getting to know a person, because who a person is or what their public image is or who they appear to be or what people have built them up to be is not always who they are. And I think you can attest to that, because for a lot of things that you saw in the news or how he might have been portrayed when you were sitting in Maggie's or the AC or the Lodge or wherever you might have ran into him at, and for those quiet places, you just know that he was just a genuine Southern gentleman who worked hard and always just wanted the best for the people in his city and the county. And that's what he really embraced, and he really wanted people to really just see that. Someone said it best. I think one of the quotes someone said is, he said, "Let the work speak for me." Let the work speak for itself. So, whether you agreed with them, disagreed with them, loved them, hated them, and let's not, we don't want to pretend, because people like to say, oh, when someone's gone, oh, they were just all this and everyone loved them. Well, we all know that wasn't the case, because nobody loves everybody. But he was a great gentleman. He was honest, and ultimately he really wanted the best, and he wanted to move us all forward, as Black people, and to ensure that everything we were reflective and represented in all parts of whether it was governments or the politics, the judiciary. And, that's a legacy that, we all should hope to just, eventually someday emulate, and in our own right. So,
it was important for Damon and I, while we did celebrate his life, not try to rewrite history. I talked about, me and him, going back and forth and verbally sparring. And, we talked about, because that was part of our relationship. You know what I'm saying? But, I got to know him and appreciate him through that, though. I got to learn a lot through that, though. And talking about learning, we always try to teach, use the show as a teaching moment, because civics is definitely something that we lack in our community. So I want you to break down for the people, what exactly is the Board of Elections? What does it do? What is the purpose of it? I mean, because when I see people complain about certain things, they complain about things as a party thing, not a Board of Election thing.
Right, yeah.
And then some people are complaining about a Board of Election thing, but they're complaining at the party, so I want to,
Right, okay. Okay, well, the Board of Elections, like I said, is a bipartisan board where people can come to register to vote, change their address, and then we're responsible for the conduct of elections, conducting fair and open elections and ensuring that no voters are disenfranchised throughout the county. So pretty much just to start now, some of you may not be aware that 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote, which is great because now you don't have to jump on your kid when they're 18. You can jump on them when they're 16 and say, hey, go fill out this form. And the minute you turn 18, you have the right to vote. We are responsible for opening up the polls, administering the polls, recruiting the election workers at the polls, ensuring that we have accessible polling sites that are open, that where there's available parking, easy transportation, easy access, and handicap accessibility. Then after those elections are done, on election, we open up the polls at 5 a.m. We close the polls at 9 p.m. However, we are generally working to close and ensure we get all those results by usually way into the wee hours of the morning. Literally, I can get home at 3 a.m. on election night. After that, after the polls are closed, we then calculate and tabulate all the election results, including the results that were from the voting machines, as well as if you chose to vote by mail and use your absentee ballot, or if for some reason you weren't in the election book or you moved and you weren't able to vote on the machine, you'll use an affidavit ballot, which can also be using to change your address or updating some other voter information that you have. After that, we're responsible for certifying those results. And then that is how we determine who are the winner of those elections. And ultimately, those become your elected officials. And then we send them out a certificate. Sometimes, as you know, those elections don't go as smoothly as we want. So there are extensive court cases where we have to review all the ballots. And now we have the fun of, if an election is certified and the winner has won by 20 votes or less, then we have to do a manual recount. And I'm sure you all heard that for the seat, one of the last seats last year for the Mount Vernon City Council race, we had to do a manual recount. So therefore, we had to go back, and our bipartisan team of Democratic and Republican staff members had to literally hand count every single ballot, paper ballot, to confirm the election results. And the only results that slightly changed were some ballots that may not have been read originally by the machines. Let's see, what else did we do at the Board of Elections? Oh, before you can get on the ballot, you have to run what we call petitions. And the Board of Elections helps kind of give candidates information in regards to running, the sample forms that are needed. We tell them how many signatures were required, the dates those need to be filed. If anyone wants to object to those petitions, we give them directions on how to do that. They're able to do that. We review the petitions and determine if they're valid or not. If there's more than one candidate for an election office, let's say if there's one assembly seat, and then there's two candidates, if those petitions are declared valid, there'll be what there's called a primary election. and that is now held in June. And this year, the primary election will be June 28th. And we already know that we're probably going to have some primaries locally, and then in our state offices, as we have a lot of Democratic and other party candidates running throughout the county and the state of New York. So you should plan to go to the polls, whether it be on election day or for early voting, which is 9 days before that. And early voting is where you can go to any of the 23 election sites in the county of Westchester and cast your ballot, so you wouldn't have to wait all the way until June 28th to begin to vote. And that kind of sums up what the Board of Elections does. And if anyone's ever interested in having us come visit, whether it be their school or their organization or getting on any forums, I've been on the NAACP and Peekskill last year to explain voting and any questions relative to that, then I'm always open to do that. So that's a little summary of what we do at the Board of Elections. And despite what people think, we are open all year round.
I think that's very important, and I think we need to, I'm gonna make sure when I edit the video, I'm gonna edit your part of the interview, just so people can watch just that. And I want to share that. I wanted to get that out there because we need to share that. And I worked with, I hadn't really worked with campaigns, and I worked with Richard Thomas' campaign in 2015, and I learned a lot. But what good and bad. But what I learned, like how many people really don't know. Like they don't really know their rights. They don't know what they can do. Those fellas didn't know they could vote if they were off probation. You know what I'm saying? Like there was just people that I registered. I had registered 205 people that year, and it was just like people were like, "Oh, I can't register because I'm a felon," and I'm like, they didn't know that you, unlike states like Florida where you need a governor pardon, like the only way you can vote, like you can vote, and now I think they can vote. Even now they can vote even if they're on probation, I believe. Felonies.
We've definitely, they've expanded the rules to ensure that more people still have their right to vote and it's not taken away from them while they're serving their time or figuring out any kind of those those charges, we'll just say. I think that's definitely great. We definitely have put that new information on our website. It's reflective on the new voter form. If anyone has any questions about that or, wants me to come and explain that a little bit more, I can get the full information on that on a future show as we get closer, maybe to primary time and stuff like that. We can come, if you like, we can come talk again about that and how to vote and stuff like that. So you just let me know.
No, absolutely. And the danger of not teaching civics. So we're not teaching our youth civics, and our youth become adults and they don't know, so they can't teach their kids. And we have generations of people that really, it's not just the youth that don't understand. There's a lot of adults that don't know because no one taught them. You know what I'm saying? And we have to do a better job in our community with teaching our people civics. Whether it should be taught in school, whether it should, I don't know how we work it out. I'm definitely down to be part of whatever process that is to help putting it together. But I've been championing, we need to teach civics. We need civic training and I mean from our seniors down to our youth. I mean all the way around, and I try to get information. I try to get information from people every time we do one of these, and hopefully someone, even if they're not watching live, they can watch this video later, and someone will learn something that they didn't know. So
that's always great. I think if we can teach something and something that we do every day, then we definitely accomplish something. And, I'm always definitely eager to be a part of that process, particularly where elections are related, because you're right. A lot of people have no idea. Like I said, they think we're not open all year round. They think we just open up right before election day, which wouldn't be possible because you have to maintain the voter database. So people are registering every day, whether in person or through the mail or at the DMV, electronically, then obviously someone has to be there to maintain those records and check them and confirm that they're all up to date. So
here's an interesting question that came to me when you was talking earlier, and I forgot now, I just remembered. So we saw what happened on the national level with the storming of the Capitol to stop the election, to not certify, the new election, the new president as the winner. And, even though Westchester is a heavily Democratic has somewhat dominance, in the county. It just made me wonder. And now that I have you on, I can ask you because I've never got a chance to ask Reggie. Do we have things in place locally and countywide to stop something from that? Because like when you see things, and all politics are local, we have some local people from Westchester there. You know what I'm saying? And this mood is going around the country. So let's not be fooled that it can't happen here.
I think that after all of that, all the county elements, the county executive, the legislators, and things like that, there were things kind of reviewed in case there was a hostile sort of riot, takeover, sort of like January 6th that occurred with the, we'll call it the Trump revolution.
Right,
in order to not certify the election results. I know, like I said, everyone was 100% on guard. They raised all the alarms, and I'm sure that, I've been shared, obviously, again, as we get probably back into a presidential race very shortly, which seems crazy, right? Because we're already talking about the next presidential race. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of meetings in regards to discuss contingency plans and things relative to any sort of violence erupting here locally. We'll obviously share that as we get closer in regards to how that may obviously be handled. But that is definitely talks behind the scenes, and we're all very aware that anything that happened nationally can definitely happen here. And that's why we're all on guard in regards to our cyber and our internet, right, security and stuff with everything going on in Russia and Ukraine, and that war that's breaking out that is definitely affecting us here, and hopefully won't further affect us to where we have to fully get involved and end up, in World War III, basically.
I'm glad you said that, and the reason I asked, and it wasn't just the presidential. I mean, they started storming governor mansions, and like it started being local. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, wow, the Democrats kind of have a little dominance right now. That I always tell people, don't think it can't happen. And
no, absolutely not.
We gotta be prepared.
Yes, and like I said, I would rest assured that, like I said, from the governor on down to our senators, Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins, and in the assembly, I'm sure that they all are working on like some contingency plans going forward, because obviously that's something we hadn't seen before, and once it happens once, we know it can happen again. So I'm sure that they're really prepping themselves for any sort of antics that occur in that respect, and hopefully we won't have to experience that or defend ourselves against that, but I'm sure we'll be definitely prepared.
And I say this not to alarm people, but it makes people uncomfortable. When you see things like that, sometimes that's a trial run for the real thing. Like in 9/11, before 9/11, with 93, they tried a van or something in the garage area or whatever. It didn't work. Then I think they tried something else and that didn't work, and then they tried the plane thing. While those people, they saw what worked and what didn't work, and I'm sure they're adjusting, and we need to be alert. Like it, it's not over. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
yes, you're 100% accurate. We have to, stay woke. We have to stay woke at all times, because you just don't know what's coming down the pike, and we're absolutely definitely in some kind of revolution, and we have to be prepared in order to defend our democracy and our voting rights and our elections. And we're all going to do our best to do that. Like I said, stay woke, make sure your cybersecurity and internet security is up, and no one's trying to hack you or do anything.
No, we had a nasty hack a few months ago.
Okay.
We were down. We were down for over a week, and we had to invest in a more powerful security package.
Yes.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, somebody hit us with like 1 billion pieces of malware is the best way I can.
Yes.
So they overwhelmed the system so much that the server had to disconnect us from the server, or was going to take down the server.
Take down everything. Yeah. So
So we had to go through all kinds of cleaning and all kinds. Yeah, that actually happened within the last 4 months or so. Yeah.
And you're not the only organization or group that's happening to. And I think that is the test run, and that's basically encouraging and forcing all of us to increase our security levels to the highest, which obviously is going to help these security companies, because we're going to pay them a lot of money to ensure that we're protected, but it's absolutely an investment that's needed.
Right.
that we'll definitely need to ensure going forward. So we got to stay woke, stay alert, and stay active to ensure all of our rights going forward.
So bringing it back locally somewhat. So this year, the major thing is our state races. Is that
Yes.
correct? Our state senate, our assembly,
Our Congress,
our Congress, and
yeah,
our
we have
U.S. senators. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah. So I want people to be, it is very important to pay attention to who, like, we don't always pay attention to who the congressman is. And we
Correct.
don't understand why our congressman is important locally. Like, we don't understand, like, they go to they go up there to represent us locally. And we don't
Right. Yes.
understand.
Yeah. Like I said, this year is about the governor's race, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general. Then we go into our congressional races, thus our House representatives that go down to Washington as well. We have our senators, our United States, we have our senators, our state senators, and our state assembly people. And those are the legislators that write the laws that protect the people and of the state of New York, as well as Westchester County. So these are all very important races to watch. In the last few years, we've managed to not have, in Westchester, some statewide office, we haven't had a lot of Republican opposition. But this year, there are candidates projected to be on the ballot for every legislative seat, from the Senate to the Assembly to Congress. So obviously, with everything going on nationally, they're getting more encouraged and, to kind of like rise up. And they want to start, the ground starts here, right? If they just take a little bit at a time, they're getting ready for that next presidential race. So everyone has to be on their guard. Remember, these are the midterm elections. They're very important. And then like with anything else, we have various qualified Democrats who want to run for the same offices, and that'll give the voters a choice at the polls. So what I say is, like I said, we don't always agree, but always make sure that you go exercise your right to vote and make your choice. I mean, I'd always agree with the choice that you are making or I are making, but we have the right to make the choice. And if we don't exercise that right, then really we shouldn't be complaining, right? Because we missed our opportunity. And like I said to you before, primary day is June 28th. Right now, a lot of people are petitioning, which for those of you who don't understand, that means they're going out and getting signatures for people to qualify for the ballot. And that'll be by early May. You'll know who your candidates are in all those races. People are going around right now, and you got to make your choice so that we'll see who's on the ballot in November to ensure that there are that Democrats are on the ballot, because there will be Republicans on the ballot in November. And then we have to make sure we get out the vote. We have to encourage everyone to vote, especially our younger demographics, because this time of year, they're only interested in the presidential races and they don't think any of these other races are very important, but they are. We have to ensure that we keep the majority of the Senate and the House in order to ensure that all of our democratic values and our, progressive ideas and any kind of things like that we want to push forward are going forward. And if we don't vote, we're going to lose control of that, and we know what's going to happen after that.
I watched last year, and I was telling people pay attention because Republicans were challenging almost everything. A lot more of the county legislators got challenged.
Yeah.
Usually when you win the Democratic primary, you ease on down the yellow brick road to the election. And look what happened to Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. Like they took that to that, they made it a little scary for her. And
Yeah.
James Nolan took the county legislator seat. Like,
Yeah.
and then I was looking at all of the other elections around the state and around the country. Like a lot more Republicans were running in these smaller elections because that matters. And where the governor matters is, that when that whole thing Trump was trying to do, what he couldn't do. So now he's trying to get people in place. So if he was to run again,
yes,
and if he was to lose, he had the people in place to overturn the election. Like,
right. It would definitely be obstructionist to ensuring the certification took place how it needed to go. Again, obviously, like I said, there's Right now, there's only 4 major parties, and that's Democratic, Republican, conservative, working families. Used to be a lot more. And during a gubernatorial year, sorry, tongue tied, we sometimes get a lot more parties on the ballot. So if they get over a certain amount of votes, which I think is like 100,000 or something, they become a party. And I know, a few years ago, there were like independent parties went too damn high, and some of the other ones. And I'm sure we might even have, oil is too damn high right now, right? Coming out in November for people to run on that. And then those are very important too, to ensure obviously that the major parties keep control, of the top of the ticket and things like that, obviously with the independents as well. But you just have to really, like I said, we have to get out the vote. We have to continue to spread the word, and we have to do it, like you said, starting now. Everyone has to know that the election is coming up. They have to know where their polling place is. If they're not going to be here for elections, they need to make alternatives to voting, whether it's early voting in person or whether it's going to be voting by absentee. So all of that's very important. And again, just like I said, we're not necessarily going to agree on all the choices, but you definitely should make a choice no matter what, and listen to the candidates, whether you can go to those forums, participate in those forums. I know we're kind of coming out of the pandemic where some things are going back in person, some things are still virtual. There's going to be hybrids of both of those as the numbers rise and jump around. And I know that kind of has people scared, but don't let the pandemic stop you from voting. You do have the right to vote, albeit by mail if you don't want to go out and rub elbows, as they say, because we're all rubbing elbows now with no mask on. And that's also very important. And don't be scared of the rhetoric behind the pandemic and COVID and things like that, because that's also being used to discourage voters and used against people. And just remember, we want to make sure that my family and my children and myself are just protected, as much as we can be. So.
We definitely going to have you back on. First, I asked you, thanks for being a good sport. Like I basically hit you earlier today, and you said yes. Like so, I didn't have no time to make a flyer and promote it. So everybody didn't know you was going to be on. So we definitely got to get you. But I definitely wanted to take the time to get as much of this information in as possible. Talking about you started talking about, that's another thing we're seeing around the country, voter suppression. In all forms, are there things being done to prevent that from taking place as much in our county or whatever?
I mean, honestly, I can tell you that there haven't been, in my years of history, there haven't been so many. During the last presidential race, there were attempts at voter suppression. There were people riding around with Trump sign, things like that in their trucks and things like that around polling places. But we were able to really deploy the local police departments and the county police to get those people basically removed. Some people got, arrested or questioned in regards to some of their actions. And we were able pretty much, I would say, to fairly contain that pretty well. As soon as that was reported, we got right into action and handled that as soon as possible. And it wasn't as huge as it was in a lot of other areas. I anticipate that going forward, though, it's obviously going to get worse before it gets better. And we're going to have to, like I said, stay on guard as well, particularly in some of the ethnic and some of the less affluent areas. People are going to try that and see if people will be intimidated or discouraged because they were just trying to drive around when people were waiting on some of those long lines, to get the people like, oh, no, I don't want to deal with this. And then, we had the people going in, the anti-vaxxers, the people who didn't want to wear the masks. And obviously that caused a little delay because we had certain protocols in place in order to ensure that those people weren't affecting the other people who chose to wear the mask. And we basically handled those pretty well. So we didn't have too many reported incidents of that sort of thing going on. So we handled that, and we handled that expeditiously and as soon as we're notified. So.
Cool. So breaking it down. So dates, can you share? What is the last day to register to vote in the primary? Or what is the last day, and as far as changing your party affiliation, what is the last day to do that? Because I know some of that might have changed.
Okay, so this year, as far as changing your party affiliation, that actually the deadline has passed. That now becomes February 14th for the year. So that now anybody changing their party, it will not unfreeze.
So next year.
until after the primary election. You can still put it in, but it's not going to change until after the June primary election.
But will it be in effect for the general election?
Yes, it will become effective in the general election, but as a lot of people may not be aware, you don't have to be registered in any party in the general.
Right.
Okay, as far as the specific deadline for the primary, I'm not 100% sure, so don't worry, I didn't have that for you. I'll share that, but the election is June 28th. So hold on one second. As you said, you did ask me last minute, so give me a second.
No, absolutely last minute. Because we talked and you were like, yeah, and then I said, did you watch the show? You said, yeah, and then I hit you this afternoon. Can you come on? you said yeah, and I was so happy that you said yes.
And I was like, it's a quiet day. Give me 1 minute.
Okay. Yes. We are talking to the new Westchester County Board of Election Commissioner Tajian Nelson. She is the first Black female to serve in that position, and she is filling the position that was held by Reggie Lafayette for a long time.
Okay, so here we are. So the registration deadline for the June primary election, is going to be, there's so many dates, it's going to be June 3rd.
Okay.
June 3rd is the last day to register in person to be eligible to vote in the primary election this year. Okay. You're going to need to postmark that application, and we're going to have to receive it by June 8th. Now, here's something I will say, and we didn't touch on this. Due to the ever-growing difficulties with some of the mail processing, as we know, with the Postal Service, if you are registering to vote by mail, you should get that application in way before the last day, because like I said, we need to get it by the 8th. And unfortunately, over the last couple of years, the Postal Service has warned us that due to the massive volumes of mail, they can't always guarantee delivery of the mail at a certain point. So again, if you're really concerned and you're not already registered to vote, please do so as soon as possible and get those in as soon as possible. And then after you've mailed in your voter registration, if you've done that way earlier than June 3rd, you should check. Don't wait until the day of the election, please, to notify us so that we can ensure that if for some reason we didn't receive your voter registration form, we can still get you in to register to vote. Now, I'd also mentioned days for early voting in case you don't want to wait until June 28th. And that's going to be June 18th through the 26th, which means it starts Saturday, June 18th, and it'll go through January 26th. And you can apply in person for an absentee ballot. If you're, like I said, you're going to be out of the state or out of the country, if you happen to be going on a nice vacation, which of course this year obviously I won't be because I'm the election commissioner, then you can apply for your ballot in person up until the day before on June 27th. Okay.
So let me ask you a question. So hypothetically, I'm going out of town.
Yes.
I get my absentee ballot.
Right.
I know I heard stories about before Trump was slowing down the post office and stuff. I'm a little nervous. I want to make sure y'all get it. Can I actually bring it in before I leave town? Like to hand it into the
Yes, right to 25 Caropus Street, right to the counter. We clock it in right then. We'll process it. So you absolutely, as soon as you get it, you could drop it off, or you can have an agent drop it off for you. And if you're unable to come, you know your friend or your mother is going to go to the polls on election day. You can give it to her, and she can drop it off in her absentee ballot box that's available there too.
So there'll be absentee ballot boxes at the election sites when you vote.
Yes, in order for you to drop off your absentee ballot. Yes, that's correct.
Like I already knew the answer to that, but I want people to know.
Yes. But you can absolutely come in person to the Board of Elections, the main office at 25 Caropus Street. And then you're able to drop it off at any of the 300 plus polling sites on election day, whether it's you or someone else on your behalf.
So to register, can that be done online now? What are the different ways that I can register?
Well, online registration right at the present time is only available through the DMV website. So you don't have to be doing any transactions, though. There's an option to register there, and then that's actually imported into our system, and then we export the information. The only thing I will say is that when you register at the DMV, it can take a few weeks in order for that process to become active in our system. So if anyone is trying to become active right away, prove their residency, or trying to do petitioning, it's better to actually do the form, whether you download it online or get it at one of the clerk's offices or off our website, and then bring it into the office or mail it right away. Stuff like that. Like right now we have people who are trying to be eligible to carry petitions. So they're coming in and they're bringing their forms and saying, hey, when can I start collecting signatures? And you can start that day, but you want to just be in the system timely as soon as possible. So I would say to everybody, if you're not registered to vote, if you're registering, please do so as soon as possible. And to the parents and the students, hey, if you're 16 or 17, get your form in now, because the minute you turn 18, you're eligible. So no more of your mom saying, hey, you're 18, get that form. You can get it in early.
So how does that work? They fill out the same form and just do it early?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And then we put it in the system, and there's like an automatic changeover when they turn 18. It flips for them, and then they're eligible to vote.
And then they'll get that little card in the mail telling them where their polling site is. Yeah.
Yes, when they turn 18, they get their own voter card in the mail.
Is there anything I did not ask you that you want people to know about you, about the Board of Elections, about politics, about whatever?
I think we covered mostly everything. There is a Board of Elections website, www.westchestergov.com/BOE. You can go there for forms, keep up to date with the election dates, the calendar, any sort of activities going on in the Board of Elections, how to vote by absentee, your voter registration forms in English and Spanish. There's also accessible ballot for those who have accessible readers on their computers, whether you're blind or have some sort of handicap that facilitates you needing to vote by the ballot in that manner. And again, I would say stay tuned and look out. We're trying to organize some voter education forums and things like that throughout the county and in the schools. And I'll share that with you, AJ, once those are set up, because we're just trying to ensure that everyone does know they have the right to vote, to be registered to vote, and to understand how to vote, different ways that they can vote.
I tried to reach out to when they're like in Mount Vernon when there was a new superintendent, when there's a new controller or new whatever. I hope that you utilize us however you need to. In other words, like if there's a message you need out to the community that you really need out, please utilize us, whether it's in an editorial or however you want. You have an open door policy. If you need to come on the show to discuss something to reach our community, maybe we'll talk about coming back on, I guess, just before the primary, maybe and back again before the election. You know what I'm saying? And I can promote it a little bit better, and we can put a flyer, and everybody will know you're coming on.
Right. I will absolutely do that as we, start to promote more of our information about the election, the calendar, those particular dates that we put on our website. I'll absolutely share that with you and highlight the specific dates, including the ones that we went over, so that you can share it with your supporters and, all of your followers and things like that going forward.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show. I look forward to the great things that you're going to do and how, things look under your leadership. Hopefully you will bring them into, not that he was behind the times, but hopefully, younger blood, you'll bring it into the future a little bit more, or whatever, needs to be done. I don't know, what that is, but.
Sorry.
Yeah. Did you hear me or you didn't hear me? Okay, I can't hear you now. No, don't hear you.
Okay, I don't know.
Now I got you. I got you now.
Okay.
I don't know what you did. Oh, I was saying I look forward to seeing how you take the BOE into the future. I'm eager to see. And again, if you ever need me, you know how to contact me now.
And you know how to contact me. Thank you.
Yes. And I am so glad that we had this. Yes.
Giving me my flowers now.
Absolutely. So happy Women Herstory Month, and congratulations. And
Thank you.
And again, I want to be clear. This was not just something that was just given to you. You are more than qualified. And I know that just from, like I said, your name, I was hearing from the beginning. I didn't know the person, but I knew your name before I knew the person. And I know that you've been putting in work for a while, and I'm glad that it is transitioned to your hands. Oh, last question. So was that just to take over his current, and then you have to be selected again, or are you now for the next term, or how does that work?
This is currently for his unexpired term, but I am also putting my name in for the full term, which will be in a couple of months, where the Democratic Party will basically vote again to approve the recommendation of that going forward.
Okay.
Thank
you very much. Have a blessed weekend, blessed night, and
you too. Enjoy your Sunday. Thanks for having me, AJ.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. That was Tajian Nelson. She is the first African-American female, first Black female to run the Westchester County Board of Elections. She's the Board of Elections Commissioner. Wanted to give her flowers. I didn't have a chance to promote this well again because I asked her just like literally hours before the show, and she agreed to come on. So I will be putting this on blackwestchester.com, and I will share it. And please make sure that you share it as well, because there was a wealth of information. We have to definitely start doing better with teaching civics in our class, and hopefully someone watching will learn something that they did not know. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. You could be doing anything else, but you decide to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This has been Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show, episode 332, I believe. 332. Streaming live every Sunday from 6 to 8 on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Next week, we will be continuing our celebrating Women's Herstory Month, and our guest co-host will be Joanne Dunn of the Youth Shelter of Westchester. Shout to Lorraine Lopez for joining us again today, and you'll see her more on the Super Tuesdays, where we will be interviewing the candidates, so you can get a better look at the candidates and hopefully make more informed decisions at the ballot box. Until next time, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it, and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not